YouTube live. We're trying something a bit different today. So I'm out here in the garden and I'm using the 4G signal. Yeah, I'm really out of breath because I've just spent the last 5 minutes running backwards and forwards, running around, trying to do some speed tests to, first of all, just to make sure that I could operate here, and then I was all set up, ready to go, and I'd forgot my microphone. I had to run and get that, and yeah, so I'm a little bit out of breath. It's been one of those days this morning, but hopefully I just thought out here in the garden with all of my vegetable patch and the polytunnels and stuff behind me might be a little bit nicer and a little bit better, especially in this beautiful weather that we're experiencing. So there you go. So first of all, hello and thank you all for coming. I know I had to change the date, so it was going to be tomorrow, but tomorrow I'm actually leading a foraging course which is going to take me out the house and away from home all day, so I couldn't make tomorrow, so I changed it at the last minute. Hopefully we'll still get a few people turn up, and thank you all, those of you who do. I just want to take a second. Hello, my beautiful wife. I didn't even get a chance to pour myself a drink, so I'll quickly do that because I'm absolutely gasping. But I just want to take a second to give a special mention to a couple of my subscribers that actually can't make it today, and that is Jeff and Deb Shipton. Now, you guys who are watching may have noticed Deb and Jeff, they comment in a lot of my videos. They've been one of my best, well, I say best, they've been one of my most loyal supporters right from the word go. They actually, they were one of my first ever patrons, and they do follow along with everything I do here, and they couldn't make it because they've been victim to a massive storm. I can't remember what province of Australia they're in, but out in Australia they've been absolutely ravaged and they've got no electricity. I'm not sure if their water's out, but anyway, they're going through a mini crisis out there, and even with all that going on, they spent the time to email me and let me know they won't be able to make it. So I just want to let you know, if and when you ever get to watch this video, Deb and Jeff, that my thoughts are with you. So there you go. Hi, Shannon. I hope you've not been suffering, Shannon, with the storms out there. I was just mentioning that Jeff and Deb have, you know, they've really been hit hard by some of the storms you guys have had, and hopefully you haven't been affected. I'm not sure how widespread they are out in Australia. Hello from sunny Wigan. Hello back, us up north. Is it sunny in Wigan? It is beautiful here. It is absolutely gorgeous. I'm thinking I might get a chance to get my top off today and get a bit of a suntan. So the topic for today, insofar as there is one, I'm going to talk about sort of complete self-sufficient meals, if you like, and I'm hoping I can pick your guys' brains because, as you'll know, in September I'm doing my complete self-sufficiency challenge, and oh, I'll just read a couple of comments. So, hi from sunny Wakefield. I've taken, let me have a look, taken a break from running around to watch. Hopefully the boss won't find out. That's from Liam. I've got my fingers crossed for you, Liam. Hope it all works out. And Shannon says she did get hit, but mainly just got really wet. Very windy on Monday. Victoria got worse hit than us. Yes, it's Victoria actually, now you mention it, I think, that Jeff and Deb are in. So as I said, my thoughts are with you guys out there. Hello Rachel, thank you for joining us. So yeah, complete self-sufficient meals. Obviously, even though it's still a couple of months away, my challenge for September, as it looms and as it gets closer, I'm sort of, my attention has become sort of laser focused on this because I'm being super strict with myself. So lots of people have done similar challenges, but as far as I can tell, I haven't found anyone that's done a challenge where they're operating under as strict rules as I am, excuse me, and they're doing it in a temperate climate. Because one of the challenges is in things like spices, and there's lots of things I've been sort of preparing for, covering that base, if you like. So we are lucky insofar as there's quite a lot of actual forageable food, wild edibles we can use to replace a lot of spices. So, you know, common hogweed is a great one. The seeds of common hogweed you can use in place of cardamom. And there's another one, I did a video fairly recently on on a plant called clove root, which grows in absolute abundance here. And again, the clue's in the name. You can use the roots as a replacement for cloves. So there's a lot of those things that I think I can kind of cover, or I can just do without. You know, pepper's another one. Pepper, there's a few plants, and there's a few plants you can grow in replacement of pepper and actually make peppercorns, but there's none really that I've not left it too late to establish here for this year. So I'm going to have to do without it in a lot of meals, but there are a few replacements. I spoke about this on the podcast last Monday, but there's one thing I actually forgot to mention, and that is there's a plant called shepherd's purse, which is a weed and it grows everywhere, and that used to be used as a pepper replacement. So I'm going to be trying that in the next few weeks. So us up north, you tried making yogurt this week and it's very runny but tasty. Well, I will say we've just got a aeroplane heading overhead. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but yeah, no, I make yogurt obviously, and I will be honest, you know, mine is a little bit runny. There are two things to say about that. Firstly, we just eat it like that, and we find, as you have said, that it is delicious. If you're going to make your own yogurt and you're going to use a really simple recipe like I do, just you get a little bit of live yogurt and basically use that to culture your milk. And so what you will end up with, I think, or at least what we're ending up with pretty much every time, is a fairly runny yogurt. We stir it all in, mix it all in, and we get a fairly runny yogurt. Now we're fine with that. The taste is identical to regular yogurt, and like I say, we're fine with that. We tend to, we sort of switched our thinking, and we think of it more like, I think the brand name is Aptimel or Actimel, but there's some sort of yogurt drinks that you can get. And we sort of think of it a bit more like that. And that sort of takes away that juxtaposition in your head where you're thinking, this isn't what it's supposed to be. So there's that. That's a solution. And, you know, the solution of just eating it and enjoying it as it is, because it is really enjoyable. But there is another thing I found. So as you'll know, probably, if you're following along, I'm making yogurt, and I've got a yogurt maker that comes with these little pots, and you make 8 individual pots. Well, I've also, because I need to make more than that, I need to make a batch while those batches are being eaten. And I've got this pot with a lid, which is about that big, stands up like that, put the lid on, and we make one big batch in there in the same machine. Now, what I have found with that actually, and obviously you can do this with the smaller batches as well, but what I found works really well with this bigger batch is you can literally just let it sit once it's made for sort of 2 or 3 days, and then what will happen is much the same as if you're making cheese, and it is the same terminology for yogurts as it is with cheese making when we're talking about curds, and we are basically making curds and whey, and it's the curds that are the yogurt, and the whey is that really runny stuff. And if you let it settle and sit for a few days, you can actually pour off the top third or so, and the bottom 2/3 are much thicker, and it's much more reminiscent of the yogurt that you would probably have started with as your live culture and the yogurts that you're going to buy in the store. So that's definitely another solution. The downside of that is that you are going to be pouring away about 1/3 of your yogurt, so you're going to be losing a little bit of what you've made. But again, you can use that for other things. You know, it doesn't have to go down the sink. It can, you know, go to feed animals or go to the compost heap or whatever. I can't really think of a great use for that in the kitchen, although having said that, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. Shannon says she's going to have to work on how I say yogurt. So I'm assuming out there in Australia, they go with the American version, yogurt. And that's fine by me, you know, you do you. But all I will say is, you know, the language is called English, and I'm in England, so I'll stick with what we do here. Is that a bit rude? I don't mean it to be rude. Yeah, so talking about sort of complete self-sufficient meals, something else that sort of my attention has been drawn on is in a lot of the things, like I want to make custard and things like that for puddings, and so many things require vanilla, and vanilla is something that I definitely can't reproduce here. There are a few wild edibles that kind of you can infuse and get a slight taste of vanilla. Meadow sweet is one such plant, and I've actually done a video on that, but it's not one that I think really gives that punch of vanilla like you would want if you're going to be making something like a. So what I'm really asking, if anyone out there, custard, oh my goodness, sorry Shannon, I know that as well. Shannon is a male, not a female, and I did actually know that, but I just, sorry, because of your name. In the UK, generally, it is a feminine name. I apologise for that. So yeah, so in terms of vanilla, it's not something I can grow. You'd need a really tropical setup, a proper heated greenhouse, and you need to replicate those tropical conditions. And vanilla is something that we use, like I say, in custard making, but also in lots of other things like vanilla ice cream, obviously. Now I'm not too worried with my ice cream because we've got some great self-sufficient flavouring that we're going to use for ice creams and yogurts insofar as fruit. You know, we can flavour it with fruit using the fruit compotes that I have been speaking about, you know, which is really, really simple. It's just fruit and honey. That's all I use to make the fruit compost. It's super simple. I made some cherry compote last night for my wife's yogurt because she likes cherry yogurt. So that's going to work great for September. But yeah, so vanilla is something that I'm kind of thinking I might have a bit of a blind spot for, and we'll just have to go without. You know, we won't be able to have vanilla ice cream. That's okay. This is delicious. This is absolutely delicious. This is my wife's kombucha. Oh, absolutely delicious. I'm going to pour a bit more. So another thing that I'm going to be doing this week is we're going to be making Noki, and we're going to be making it out of ricotta and spinach. Now again, this is something I've never ever tried before, and it's with a view to that September challenge. I don't think I've ever even eaten Noki before. My wife just said in the comments, wondering what everyone else is up to today. So yeah, please do let us know. What are you guys all doing? Are you planning on being in your gardens or just chilling out? What's your plans? But yeah, this idea of Noki. I found a recipe online for spinach and ricotta Noki. Of course, I can make the ricotta myself. Ricotta cheese is super simple. If you've never made cheese, it's definitely somewhere you can start because you've almost certainly got the ingredients you need. You could have a go at that this afternoon. So Shannon says she's been moving wood chip onto my garden as mulch. Totally jealous of the weather that you guys are having. So cold here. Shannon, there's precious few days of the year, I imagine, out there in Australia that you could connect with me here in the UK and be jealous of our weather. So we'll appreciate that as long as it lasts. So you guys, let me think. What are you in there? So you're right in the depths of winter, I suppose. And you know, you've got a vastly different climates all around your continent, haven't you? So what's your average temperature there, Shannon, at this time of year? And you know, what sort of lows do you get? Do you get frosts? I've no idea. Pesky Chicken, hi, you were here last week. Thank you for joining us again. You are cleaning your chicken coop and making yogurt later. Fantastic. I love those things. Do you deep litter or do you clean out every week? We use deep litter here on our chicken coops, and it just means there's so much less effort, and everyone's just as happy, but so much less effort. It's actually easier than when we're adding it onto our compost pile because we're just doing it probably twice a year from each sort of area that we've got chickens. TM Garden, escape and explore. Hi from Sweden. Hi. Lovely of you to join us. What sort of weather have you got there in Sweden? How's it doing out there? Have you got this beautiful weather we have here? I think it's probably about 23 or 24 degrees. That's just, I haven't looked at the weather report. Feels and a light breeze, and it's just lovely. Liam's also eating homemade yogurt. Yes, absolutely. Yes, you are. And you are trying to tame the garden and hedges. Sounds like strimmer and hedge trimmer work. We haven't trimmed our hedges once yet this year, and this is around the time of year that I start doing it, and it's a great job. I enjoy doing it, but it's also great for our goats and our sheep because they get to eat all the hedge trimmings and they absolutely love it. The goats, it's their favourite food. They actually prefer it, I think, probably even to the goat mix. And it's a shame that we can't actually use them to trim our hedges, but they don't tend to keep to the straight line they're supposed to be in here. But yeah, we'll be starting to trim our hedges a little bit later. And as soon as we do, again, the feed costs reduce on the animals, although there's very little feed cost anyway. We still need to, so we need to feed our milking goats a sort of a shop bought mix, particularly when they're lactating or when they're pregnant, because it just gives them that extra boost. You know, it gives them a little bit more than they can get through just general forage. And because we're taking that energy away from them, we're asking them to produce all this milk that we're taking away. So, you know, we need to top up that energy, and that's why we have the shop bought or the farm store bought mix that we feed our goats. But it's not a tremendous amount. But then, like I say, at this time of year when we start trimming our hedges, even the amount of that we give them comes down even more. I've just got a few more comments here. So again, from Shannon, we don't really get frosts here. I'm trying to grow potatoes, for instance, in winter, since it's not so cold. It has been done. We usually have 16 degrees Celsius in high winter. Lows range between 4 and 12. Wow. So really, the jealousy is working backwards in this relationship. We should be jealous of you. Oh, goodness me. I'd love to have those temperatures in the winter. It means you've got a huge advantage, because you can start your main crops, your sort of summer crops, super early, pretty much all year round. And I suppose you have more trouble with growing brassicas and things in the summer. So you've probably got a shorter brassica season than us. I'm guessing you'd have to do most of that in the winter. And Liam is asking, would it work for our chucks? I'm assuming you're asking about the deep litter method, and if you are, then yes, absolutely it would. It's so simple. In its really, and I'll elaborate on this in just a second, but in its simplest form, what you're basically doing is you're just adding more bedding on top of their existing bedding, and it's getting deeper and deeper, hence the name, deep litter method. Now that sounds a little bit wrong, a little bit disgusting if it's something you've never ever come across before, but it's neither of those things. What we do, we also buy 1 bag of agricultural lime, which you can get from a garden centre or from an agricultural supply store. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. 1 bag, I mean, I'd be stunned. Obviously, you'll have to do the conversion insofar as currency, but I'd be stunned if 1 bag cost more than £20. And that bag will last you, well, 1 bag will last us a year, and we've got over 100 birds. But basically what you do is you, every week or so, you just go and you put a light sprinkling of bedding on top of the bedding that they had there. But before you do that, you put an even lighter sprinkling of lime. And what the lime does is it keeps all the mites down and kills them off, and it keeps everything nasty sort of under control. And if you're worried about it smelling, then you shouldn't worry about it, because it just won't. It's not going to stink. So around any of your animals bedding, if it smells, then you're doing something wrong, you know, then there's something going on there. None of our animals have stinky beds. And like I say, we use this deep litter method. So you just build up these layers, and you don't want to obviously put too much bedding down. You just need a light sprinkling every time. And it means that you're killing all of that. You know, with chickens, they've got really acidic manure, so you're keeping that manure underneath that new bedding, away from their feet, so they don't get burnt legs and stuff. And over time, what's going to happen is, it's got so many benefits, it's going to just rot down a little bit. And so when you move it to your compost pile, half of it, or you know, the bottom bit, is already had 6 months of decomposition, and obviously gradually less up through the layers. So it needs less time to break down on your compost heap. And if you time it correctly, we try and time it so that we clear our hens out at around the end of February, beginning of March, because as it breaks down, just like your compost heap, it's actually going to release some heat. So it does help to keep the temperature up in the coldest nights during the tail end of winter in January and February. Particularly, like I say, if you're coming to the end of a cycle at that time. So I've just had a few more comments I just want to pick up on here. So Rachel says, I'm making soap later with flowers, from the garden. So you're making soap, so you're just including the soap, the petals within your soap mix. That sounds amazing. You there. There are some plants, of course, that contain really high levels of saponins, which is the soapy part of some plants, and you can actually make soap from those plants. So the horse chestnut tree is a great example. I've done a video on how you make soap, how you can make soap just from the leaves of a horse chestnut tree because they contain such high levels of saponin. But that soap sounds amazing. The Black Country Angler, I'm so happy you could make it. Thank you for coming. Not quite sunny up here in the West Midlands. Working in the garden today, waiting for the river season to start. So I'm assuming, is that coarse fishing or trout fishing? I know generally the rivers are all closed to angling, aren't they now, for another few weeks, but you're obviously can't wait to get out there. I know I'm hoping that I'm actually going to go river trout fishing with one of my best friends. He was actually best man at my wedding this season, and I haven't been river trout fishing for a long time. I used to go as a boy. I used to poach when I was really young, and we used to go all the time, several times a week, and we used to go poaching trout out the river. Obviously I've grown out of that now. I'm a much more well-behaved person than I used to be. TM Gardens, sunny and hot here mostly, but we're having pretty extreme storms at the moment over in Sweden. I hope you haven't suffered too much with those storms. And Shannon, brassicas in summer really. I'm keen to get a greenhouse / potting tunnel to get a really early start to the season, so keen to try it. So as you'll know, this these polytunnels here are so affordable. I can't remember what they cost. I think well under £200, and the second one was actually a gift from my wife as a Christmas present. But I just think value for money, they're absolutely fantastic. They're easy to put up, they're affordable, and yeah, I just think go for it. I think anyone who's thinking about getting one, stop thinking and go for it if you can afford it, because they're just so worth it. Have you ever made kefir from your milk? No, I haven't, Rachel. And so here's the thing. I've said before on a few of the podcasts that I'm a generalist. I'm not a specialist. And what that means to me, it's obviously got some huge advantages for me. And it means that just 3 years into my journey, because I'm only 3 years into trying any of these things, I'm very new to all of it, but just 3 years in, it means I'm able to have a relatively successful vegetable garden. I'm able to have lots and lots of perennial edible plants. I'm able to have milking goats. I'm able to make cheese. I'm able to make yogurt. I'm able to make sourdough. I'm able to preserve a tremendous variety of things. I'm able to identify a variety of wild edible plants and use them. So I'm able to have learned all of these things, but only a little bit, and I haven't become an expert in any of these. So you're either a generalist or a specialist. Now, a specialist might focus, for instance, just on the milk and the goat's milk, get the milking goats, learn how to milk them, learn everything there is to know about the milk and the milking process, and then start learning how to make cheese and all of those milk cultures, and really become a master within that world. Well, I do like to master things, I really do. But it's a much slower process for me because my attention is split across such a wide range of topics that my progress towards mastery is incremental. So it's a really long-winded answer to your question of have I ever made kefir. But no, I haven't, and the reason is because it's something I'm aware of and I know a little bit about, but starting off, so when I make my cheese, I use a culture that I originally bought online from an online cheese making store. And from that culture, I then make all of my other culture in perpetuity, and that works fantastically. But there's a book called The Art of Natural Cheese Making, and in there, that's really my, my point of reference for when I want to start learning a little bit more, and when I do start learning a little bit more about the cultures and how to make them myself. That's a great book, and I recommend that off the back of some other people who have recommended it that I wholeheartedly trust and believe. And I have read it, but I haven't spent the time immersed in it and going through the procedures in there to really learn how to make kefir. So no, I haven't. It is on my radar, and one day I'm sure. Got a few more comments. Let me just get through these a second. So, Rachel, I've made washing up liquid for washing machine detergent, but today I'm making bars for shampoo and hand washing. Fantastic. So again, bars of soap is something, for whatever reason, and I've got everything I need to do it. I bought the lye and things like that I needed to do it well over a year ago. And then it just bubbled away as something that's kind of on my radar, but never quite made it to the top of my to-do list. And I want to make goat's milk soap. And I thought I was going to be doing that a few weeks ago, and then other things came up, and I still haven't got around to it. But bars of soap is definitely up there. And I've recorded a podcast with some people who are really experienced making soap. So that's the topic of the podcast. That'll be coming out in a week or so. And we go into a lot more detail there than I've ever done before in the soap making process. And, you know, like I say, it's definitely on my radar, and I will be making soap at some point. Where are we next? More from Shannon. Carl, I did some research on foraging and found that sour bobs are actually edible. I don't know if you get them in the UK. They're really common. Got some growing in my front yard. Never heard of sour bobs. What are they? I've got a lot more to say on this, Shannon, once you tell me what they are. So you have never heard of sour bobs. TM Garden Escapes. Escape and Explore. I'm so new to all this. Planted my first ever veg in April this year. Veg is already up and running. Chickens next month, and eventually goats and bees. Any tips for very beginners? Yeah, loads. And they all circle around a theme. I'm still a beginner, and I'm not scared of saying that at all. But tips for beginners, my tips all circle around the theme of just embracing failure, being very, very comfortable with making mistakes, because once you embrace failure and once you become comfortable with all of your mistakes, got a little bee landed in my hair. Yeah, once you become comfortable with making your mistakes, then it sort of takes the brakes off. Because you can do anything then. You can try all these new things and you're not scared about getting it right. You know, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And, you know, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good enough. And sometimes you've just got to go. You've got to start. And, you know, you've got to pull away from the lights. We can sometimes spend so long worrying about getting something right or trying to learn the best way of doing something that we never actually do anything. And that's a problem I personally never have. And that's something I'm very blessed with. But yeah, my main advice would be, don't be shy about making mistakes, and you know, just enjoy it, enjoy the process. A couple of more practical tips, some things I have definitely learned, is that especially if you're growing from seed, marking is so important. Marking out your plants. When you sow your first lot of seeds, you sow them, you might sow 5 or 6 seeds, and you'll say to yourself, and you probably already did, right, I know what's what. I know that these are cabbages, and these are radishes, and, you know, these are onions, and you think, I'll just keep track of them. It's going to be easy. And then what happens is 2 months later, you've forgotten what 2 of them were. One of them hasn't sprouted, and you're not sure which one. So you go to move the 2 that you know what they are, because you don't want to forget what they are. Then you'll move everything around again. Perhaps your shelf will fall down and you need to quickly move things around. And whatever it is, you will lose track of what everything is, and you'll end up putting things out exactly where you don't want them, and etc, etc. So yeah, that is exactly that. And you've just said that, yeah, you've done exactly that. I don't know what's growing in some of the seed trays. And we all have. We've all done that. You're in good company there. So Black Country Angler says, once you embrace failure, it helps improve in so many walks of life. And I agree, I couldn't agree more, just across the board, just being comfortable with your own failures. It means you're gonna have more successes, because, you know, and you can try more things. So, you know, everyone, particularly with growing plants, we all live in our own individual microclimates, and the advice for sowing times on the back of seed packets, they're not, you know, necessarily going to be perfect for you. So by experimenting with a few things, you know, I'm a huge advocate for going early. You know, if it says to sow something on the seed packet, it says sow in May, then I'm for sure sowing in April. Now I'm doing that, fully expecting them to fail, and I'm going to sow again, you know, 2 weeks later and 2 weeks later and 2 weeks later to cover myself. But by going early, there are some amazing benefits to be reaped. You know, you're going to get some super early plants that you might not otherwise have been able to get. We've got some spectators. Can you see the girls over there? Hello, girls. Saying hello back. Yeah, so, you know, embracing failure and just going for it is definitely my main piece of advice. Liam is asking how the turkeys are settling in. So far, so good. They're a little, just got you, Liam. So they're a little bit overweight, and the male, they're not going to be able to breed because the male is too heavy. So we're trying to get a little bit of weight off him, and I'm kind of struggling morally and ethically with the whole thing, because basically what they are, what they are is basically the turkey equivalent of broilers. So when we think about hens and we think about meat chickens, broilers have been sort of overbred. This is only my opinion. Everything I say is just my opinion. But they've been overbred to the point where they have all sorts of health problems. They put on weight too quickly. They're bred to have literally an insatiable appetite, an appetite that cannot be satiated no matter how much they eat. And they get too big to move, really. And these turkeys are the turkey equivalent of those. And I'm not sure that the breeding has gone quite so far with turkeys as it has with hens, but you know, there's a lot of similarities. So yeah, basically our male, he's not going to be able to breed. He's not going to be able to breed our female, at least not in his current state. He's too heavy, he can barely move. So, hi Alan. Hi Alan. Alan Roderick from the Urban Homesteading UK podcast has just said, got any tips for getting out of family engagements? You're on your own there, mate, sorry. Back to turkeys. So yeah, he's too heavy. He can barely move, really. He can walk around, but it's a bit of a struggle for him. So we're trying to get some weight off, and basically if we give him and her, if we give them ad hoc food, pellets, feed, you know, commercial feed, they're only going to put on more weight and have more and more of a problem. And if we don't give them that, they're going to be constantly hungry. So I've got this ethical dilemma. I'm really happy to have the turkeys, and you know, I want happy, healthy birds. So I haven't decided yet. We might end up using this as like just a way of wedging the door open. We might end up replacing them with a different breed and actually just slaughtering these. We're going to give them as happy and healthy a life as we possibly can while they're here. We might end up slaughtering them. We might end up getting a heritage breed Tom, which is a male turkey that will be able to breed our girl, because she's laying eggs almost every day. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so I'm just playing it by ear. But one thing we are doing, I've still got quite a bit of chard that I'm pulling out. So I've been feeding them the chard, because by feeding them things like chard and spinach, kale, it's a way of satiating their appetite without actually them putting more weight on. So that's something we're doing to kind of manage that situation. So let's have a look. So Shannon has replied, sour bobs are a common weed with a yellow flower. It was common for kids to eat them all the time. They are sour and can be dried and crushed into a powder. Adds a tangy flavour to chicken or fish. Awesome. Well, we don't have that plant here, but I would be delighted if you let me know how that goes. So I'm, as you guys will know, as regular followers will know, I am a huge advocate of foraging. I just think it's awesome. It serves so many purposes. It puts food in the kitchen. It also fills some gaps if we can't grow it ourselves, because there's some things that grow wild that can replace things like spices that I was talking about earlier. It's also a great way of connecting with nature and becoming more in tune with the seasons, I think. And Shannon, I know, is someone who's just getting into foraging, I think, you know, due to the influence of this channel. So, you know, that makes me really, really happy. TM Garden Escape and Explore, I've done exactly that. I don't know what's growing in some of the seed trays. We've all done exactly the same. Where else? So my wife's just put that Tauren loves the sound of sour bobs. My wife and son are in the house following along. Yeah, I bet he does. I bet he does. So Tauren, we've got this beautiful weather. We've got a little collapsible swimming pool that we put up, and it was lovely earlier. I was just coming out watering my seedlings, and I could hear him yipping and hollering in the pool and making the most of this weather. And I think that's important. You know, here in the UK, we get such changeable weather all the time, and it's really important when you've got these glorious days to make the most of it. That's why I'm sat out here and not in my kitchen, utilising the 4G, which brings me on to a quick question for you guys, actually. Could you let me know, those of you who tuned in last week, what's the quality like? Is the quality okay? Was it okay last week? Are both weeks okay? Is one week better than the other? Because it'll give me some pointers as to where I should sort of set up in the future, whether my Wi-Fi or 4G signal here are better, because I'm not really sure. Howdy, Sugar Creek Homestead. Lovely of you to join us all the way over in Tennessee. What sort of weather have you got out there? We've got quite the range this afternoon. It is this afternoon now, isn't it? We're here in the UK anyway. So, going back to my self-sufficient meals. Thank you, Liam. That's great feedback. Thank you. So going back to my self-sufficient meals, I was talking about gnocchi. Gnocchi is something I haven't really eaten or experimented with, but that's something I'm going to be making. For spinach and ricotta. Gnocchi, us up north, so the quality is a little bit better this week. That's great to know. Yes, I'm acutely aware of that carbohydrate part of my meal and where that's going to come from, because, you know, staple foods, I was really worried that I was basically going to be eating potatoes with every meal. And as I've got closer and closer to September, I'm starting to focus a little bit more on that and come up with some other ideas and different things that we're going to do. So homemade pasta. So I should probably just spend a minute actually before we go there talking about grains. Grains are something we can grow. Everywhere around the world, I'm fairly sure, has got some grain varieties that are suited to their climate. Now, we can grow things like wheat and all the things that we would normally make flour from here in the garden. But what I will say is that the threshing and the processing to get from the plant to usable flour is completely erroneous. It's something I've mentioned several times that I definitely want to do. I want to do it for the experience. I want to do it to be able to say I've done it, and if I ever wanted to do it in the future I could, and to learn a lot about how the process works. But for whatever reason, it's something that I just didn't have the time or energy to get done this year. And it's a shame. I would have loved to have done some of that for September. But what I have done, so we are eating things that we can procure from our own resources. So it's going to be things that I grow, trap, forage, whatever it might be. But they've all got to be things that I can butcher or make myself. Now, there's only one. Hi, DSR IT training. No, not at all. Thank you for joining us. God, no apology needed. But there's one sort of caveat. So the hard and fast rule is I'm not allowed to go and buy anything. And that includes grains and it includes spices. It includes everything. And I'm being super strict with myself on that. There's one slight area where I'm allowing myself a little bit of play, and that is I'm allowed to trade. So this has opened up a really important door for me, because it means, and you'll probably know this already, but it means that I'm going to be trading our eggs, and I've already started doing this actually, some of our eggs for flour. And we've got a bakery right next door. They obviously need eggs. So having access to flour is a huge advantage, because it means I'm not looking at just having potatoes every meal for that carbohydrate element. So obviously potatoes are going to be a huge part, a huge component, and that's why I've given up pretty much half of my annual vegetable bed to potatoes. But being able to have flour makes a huge difference, because instantly that means sourdough. So, you know, you could quite easily imagine a month where every morning your breakfast was some form of eggs on toast, or even jam on toast, or, you know, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden that's a third of your meals taken care of. But flour also opens up the opportunity of homemade pasta, because you can make pasta using nothing but flour and eggs. So I haven't tried that yet. I've had several people contact me about it. I've got lots of interesting recipes, but I say recipes, I mean, they're all just so simple. It's just, you just mix some flour and eggs together. You know, there's a little specific way you do it. But it's not erroneous. It's really quite simple. So again, that's something I need to really get on and have a go at sooner rather than later. But pasta is, you know, another door that it completely opens, so much so that I'm thinking the only thing I'm really going to be missing insofar as that carbohydrate part, so long as I can make a decent amount of pasta in advance is rice. Rice is the only sort of staple diet part of a meal that I think I'm going to be missing. So going from a point where I was worried I was going to be eating potatoes every single meal to not really concerned about that element at all anymore, yeah, that's been a really good journey, and I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. So when I was saying about it's contingent on me making enough pasta, because here's the thing. So even now, when we are still going to the shops, when I'm still buying things like salt and pepper from the shops and I'm not making my own, when or you know, foraging for wild plants to take their place, when we're still having you know, my occasional shop bought food and pizzas and things like that from time to time, even with that, it's still, as you guys know, a tremendous amount of time to process the milk and do all these things. So if I'm then going to have to be making all the pasta that I'm going to eat, etc., etc., it's just going to take up so much time that that becomes a secondary concern. So I really want to get ahead of the game on that, and I want to make up some big batches of pasta, which of course we know we can dry because it's how we buy it in the shops all the time, and have that ready going in September. Sugar Creek Homestead of Tennessee, have you looked into dry land rice? No, I haven't. Tell me more, please. It's something I've never heard of, actually. Yeah, no, please tell me more. Shannon says, what will you do about the tea bags for the kombucha and coffee? Well, I've got simple solutions, both of those. So the tea bags we use as a convenience. We can literally just swap them out for dried fruit. So we use fruit tea bags, and effectively that's all it is. It's just concentrated dried fruit. So we grow loads of fruit here. So it means we're going to be slightly more limited into the flavors of kombucha that we're making, because we use all sorts of all sorts of purchased fruit teas, and of course it runs the gambit of every piece of fruit that grows around the world, and we're going to be limited to pear, plum and apple, but you know, goodness me, they sound like delicious combinations, so that's going to be fine. And when it comes to coffee, I bloody love coffee. I love coffee so much. So I'm drinking decaf. I have one caffeinated coffee in the morning, first thing. It's such a good drink. I've got a tea plant which is going to give me caffeine. So I'm probably going to, they're struggling a little bit, the tea plants, and I'm probably going to get about 2 cups of tea from them in September. So maybe I'll have to have one on the 1st of September, and that'll have to get me right through to the 15th. But yeah, so the coffee, I think I'm not going to miss as much as the caffeine. And I'm just going to go cold turkey, and I'll have to deal with it. And I think, because the actual drink is fine, I can replace it. There's so many. I really like turkey tail tea, which is, turkey tail's a wild mushroom that you can forage, and it makes a lovely tea. I actually really like cleaver tea, which is another wild edible plant. So in terms of as a drink, I'm not worried, but that first coffee, that caffeine to get me out of bed in the morning, that's going to hit me hard, and I'm just going to deal with it. So the first 2 or 3 days vlogs are probably going to be talking all about that in September. Vicky Parnaby, hello from Eric and Kaylee. Parnaby, hello back to you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Escape and explore, TM Garden Escape and Explore. I don't think I could live without coffee. I mean, I hear you, and it's going to be a struggle. It's probably going to be the biggest struggle. DSR IT training. Usually fruit teas use hibiscus as a base. I don't know enough about it to really think any further. Something about the kombucha actually that I hadn't thought about is it generally, you know, we use, yeah, it does, you're right, you're quite right actually the more I think about it, because we use a green tea as well, we use a green tea bag. So maybe I just won't be able to have kombucha in September. I can live without that. I've got lots of, because I like to drink milk, and we obviously create a lot of milk, so I can just live without that, and I can drink with, you know, make do with all sorts of wild teas. So maybe that's where we go, and I drink more water. I don't drink any water at the moment. I never drink water on its own. The Black Country Angler. How come you don't grow your own mushrooms on site? Is there enough mushrooms for you to forage? to make that idea redundant? The simple answer is yes. I mean, I have probably, if I stopped foraging for mushrooms today, and bear in mind the peak mushroom foraging season is just around the corner. So in sort of September onwards is when I do 80% of my mushroom harvesting is September, October, November. So bearing that in mind, if I never foraged another mushroom again, I've probably got enough to last me probably 12 months as it is. And like I say, we're just about to hit that start of that peak season. So yeah, I mean, without even trying, I forage a tremendous amount of mushrooms, both different species and actual volume. Shannon, my partner loves coffee. She asked if we sent you some, could you drink it in September? Oh, so what a lovely, lovely thought. It's the thing. So yes, I probably could if I wanted to get strict with the rules. However, I think it kind of defeats the spirit of the challenge. So I massively appreciate that. But yeah, I'm going to have to turn you down on that offer. TM Garden Escaping Explorer, I was a bit late to the party. Apologise if you've already said. But what are you drinking now? And this is kombucha. It's my wife's kombucha that she makes every time. Lots of it happens with the pigs and it happened with the kombucha. So I'll start making something. I'll start making the kombucha. And my wife, who is not as open to new experiences as me, she, takes one look at the SCOBY. I'm not drinking that. Keep that away from me. And then what happens is, because I try to encourage her to drink it, we have this kind of two negative magnets pushing against each other effect. And the more I try to get her to drink it, the less chance there is of her drinking it. And that process normally lasts about 6 months. And then the following 6 months, I give up. But there's a residual effect of this reverse magnetism. And then after that 6 months, she'll start drinking it and go, oh, that's bloody lovely. I love that. And now she drinks more than anyone in our house by quite a large margin, and she's taken over the making of it. So there you go. That's the answer, is kombucha. Sugar Creek Homestead of Tennessee writes, it's just a variety of rice that doesn't need to grow in water. My Amish neighbours grow it to be sustainable and shared some with me. I was surprised to find how much is being grown here in the USA. Wow, interesting. Well, that's just made it onto my list of stuff to kind of have a look at and do a bit of research on and see where we go. And Liam, about some gifted homebrew. Well, again, thank you very much for your kind offer. But I will, unfortunately, politely decline. It's not in the spirit of the challenge, but also I don't drink. And interestingly, tomorrow is my anniversary. It will be 9 years, I think, since I had an alcoholic beverage. So yeah, bit of a milestone coming up tomorrow. Not that I celebrate, I just happen to see it in my diary. So with that, guys, I think I'm going to start wrapping up. I've got quite a lot to get on with today in the garden. I've got our car park is just for yes we will, Shannon. Yes we will. Shannon says we'll see how you feel come September the 2nd or September the 20th. So I've got a load of stuff in the car park there. I've got 4 bins full of fruit and veg that I need to put up down to the pigs, and I also want to do a little bit of weeding. I want to take a bit more of my chard out. I've dressed a load of pots, little module trays in the polytunnel with compost, ready to do a bit more sowing. Hi, Kimro1970. Please don't apologise. Thank you for joining us. So in September, I'm doing a complete self-sufficiency challenge, and basically I'm not being really, really extreme with that, insofar as, that includes salt, pepper, spices, everything. Everything I eat is going to be either grown here, raised and slaughtered here, or foraged or caught or trapped or whatever it might be by my own hands. The only slight caveat to that is I will be doing a little bit of bartering. We'll be trading some eggs for some flour and possibly some honey if my bees aren't productive by then, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. So yeah, getting back to what I've got on, I've got a lot of sowing to do. I also want to go and inspect my bees today in this beautiful weather. So a fair amount to do. I apologise to you guys who have, yeah, it is a really exciting challenge. I'm really looking forward to it. And obviously I'll be documenting all of that. So there'll be, at least at the start, daily vlogs, and I will document all of my meals and everything else. If that gets a bit repetitive, then obviously, you know, we don't need to do it every day. We'll see how it goes. And Kimra's just asked how much land I have, and do we have a forest garden to help? Well, we've got plenty of land. We've got about 8 acres here that we manage. We're not able to do as much as we'd like with all of it, but we've got plenty of land. But we don't have a forest garden. The reason being because we haven't been here long enough. So we've planted one, we've planted a food forest, and planted it 2 years ago. So it's very much immature at the moment. TM Garden Escape and Explore, this has been so interesting. Thanks so much. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about the challenge. Well, stay tuned. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap me up, guys. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how appreciative I am of you guys joining me. I really am, and hopefully we'll be able to do the same next week. As long as there's an appetite for it, I'm delighted to do them. So I think next week we will, in fact, no, I can't check my diary because I don't have it, but next week it will be probably Sunday, but I'll let you guys know in my videos, but if we say it'll be Sunday at noon, same time, next Sunday, and if I have to move that again to the Saturday, which I don't think I do, I'll let you know all the best ways I can think of to do it. And that just about wraps us up. Eric likes my t-shirt. Thank you. Yeah, thanks guys, thanks ever so much, and I will speak to you really soon. Cheers.